Hello and welcome to this week's live Monday Music Motivation. Happy Labor Day. This is a fun one where I was trying to think of a little bit of tying it into the theme of Labor Day today. And I also saw a short that I feel like is really, really powerful idea that will be great motivation and inspiration for you all today. So what happens when we're practicing is sometimes we are putting in kind of the wrong work because it feels right in the moment, but it's a little bit different kind of work that's going to feel right in the long run. And I think starting to recognize those distinctions and starting to lean into the latter work will be so beneficial for our clarinet progress and our clarinet journey. So the way most of us work and the normal labor we do, going with the Labor Day theme, is that we sort of show up, we play, we do our reps, and we try to make things a little bit better. We start at the beginning, play through until we make a mistake, and then try to fix that mistake and make it a little bit better. But normally how we're fixing that mistake is like, oops, I played a wrong note, or that rhythm wasn't quite right. Let me go back and try it again. And we're kind of hoping that it's going to fix itself. And if you're ever in that, like, hoping that it's magically going to fix itself, that's also known as the pointless practice trap, because that practice is 90% pointless. You can get better doing that, but the better that you get isn't going to stick and isn't going to be nearly as efficient and effective. And this is kind of the pitfall that people fall into. And this is the sort of standard way of practice, I would say. And what this does for us is it feels pretty good at the end of a practice session because you had mistakes that you were making, you played them over and over and over and over and over and over, and they actually did get a little bit better. So you feel like at the end of the practice session, like, oh, I made a bunch of mistakes there. At the end of the practice session, I was playing it better. So I progressed, I made improvement. The problem with this kind of pointless practice trap style of playing and practicing is that you're going to do that and it's going to feel like you got better that day, but most of those improvements aren't going to stick because you don't know why it got better. It just kind of got better by pure chance and by pure luck. Or you're going to be really frustrated because you're going to be playing something over and over and over and over and over, and it's not going to be getting better, and you're going to be like, what the heck, I can't do this, this is impossible, and get frustration in your practice. So if you're ever frustrated in your practice, great indication that you're in the pointless practice trap. If you find your growth kind of stagnant and not improving, great sign that you're in the pointless practice trap. Speaking of the pointless practice trap too, if you want a much more in-depth training on how to get out of it and get into what I call instead the greatness zone, where you're going to be practicing like the greats and developing your natural talent because you're practicing so efficiently and effectively, then go to quickstartclarinet.com/greatness. There's a link in the description for that to check out that really long and in-depth training. All on the latest kind of talent research and how to find the greatness zone, which is really good stuff if you find that idea interesting. On the other hand of the pointless practice trap is kind of the greatness zone style of practicing, where you're being very deliberate and kind of very on top of things. And the weird thing about this is it makes the individual practice session almost less fulfilling and less satisfying when you're not used to it. If you're used to practicing in the pointless practice trap, you do get a little fulfillment at the end of the practice session, like, oh, this is sounding a bit better than it was before. In the kind of more greatness zone style of practicing, things do sound better, but they sound better in a different way. And it's not about getting it closer to the end goal necessarily. It's about getting better quality in kind of a simplified version a lot of the times. And that can be a little bit less satisfying. To go into the analogy and the short that kind of inspired this idea, it's about this idea of challenge and control. And in the short, he explains it so well. I have a link in the description to that too, that you can watch. What the short was about doing like handstands, I think it was. And it was very fascinating because he is talking about how people keep trying to do handstands and trying to build up to it, but they never quite build up to it in the right way because either they're doing something that's too easy, so it's not challenging them, or they're doing something that's too hard, so their form breaks down and they lose control, and they never really get there. And it reminded me so much of the pointless practice trap, because if you're trying to do like a handstand and you just kind of like, okay, handstand, 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 you never really get there. And you would get there a whole heck of a lot faster if you designed exercises to build up to doing a handstand in a really thoughtful way and executed them in a really deliberate way as well, much more like deliberate practice or getting into the greatness zone on doing your handstand. So that was a really kind of fascinating, just the parallels between an exercise, which I don't do a whole lot of personally, but doing an exercise versus actually how we practice our music and our clarinet. And the kind of crux of the idea was that you need to find something that has challenge but still has control. And it's when sort of control and challenge meet, that's when you find the sweet spot. And I think in a lot of ways, that's the kind of sweet spot that Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talks about when he's talking about flow and getting into the flow state, is meeting that challenge and control where you're still doing it very, very accurately, but you're maximally engaged with it mentally. And that's kind of the sweet spot. And again, if you want to go way more in depth with this, you should go to quickstartclarinet.com/greatness, because there's a whole lot in that. But in the meantime, for this week, I want you to consider that as you're practicing, think about, am I feeling challenged, but still playing accurate, still in control of getting the results that I want and making things accurate? And I think what most people do is they miss the control part of it. Most people in their practice are going in that challenge and a little bit too much challenge 90% of the time by going too fast or doing too large of a chunk. If we could just do a little bit smaller chunks, you can go pretty close to tempo on a very small chunk. Or as you're doing a measure or 2 or 4 measures, doing it slowly enough that you're totally in control, and then getting creative to find challenge in it. And this is where this kind of practice, the greatness zone practice, can feel a little less satisfying in the moment, because in pointless practice, you can do reps and reps and reps and reps and get it like approximately going the way that you want it to go, and close to kind of the performance, but probably not clean, and it probably doesn't feel in control, and you kind of feel like you're getting lucky that it's coming out okay, and then it doesn't stick at all the next day. In the greatness zone practice, you're sort of doing it in weird ways. You're doing your practice rhythms, you're going slow, and the end result in the day is not something that sounds like the end performance goal, but it's something that you're in control of and something that you had to really kind of engage with and was challenging for your brain. And that's going to allow it to sink in and build more kind of strength to it. And that's what in the long term is going to have you feeling in control and confident with what you're playing, how it should go in the performance. So it's a little bit of that trade-off of what feels good in the short term versus what's going to work in the long term. And when you're practicing in the greatness zone, until you get that kind of mindset shift and get used to it and trust the process that this doesn't sound quite how the performance should go right now, but I feel in control, I feel really engaged, I know that I was doing the right stuff, and I know that over time this is going to pay off. But it's getting used to trusting that process of it paying off over time that takes a little bit of practicing and a little bit of getting used to. But that's where the fruits of your labor are really going to come from, is trusting that process and finding that challenge and control, trusting that it's going to lead to progress. So that's my motivation and inspiration for today. Don't forget to fill out your practice template and be thinking about this and implementing it as you practice this week. You can go to quickstartclarinet.com/get started. That link's also in the description to download this exact template, or you can just make it for yourself. It's the date for the week, reflection of how things are going, your goal for what you want to achieve this week, and your plan for what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. And when you have that plan, put it in your schedule, put it in your planner, set reminders, do whatever you need to do to make sure that happens so that you keep moving forward and getting into that greatness zone style of practice to really dig in, really progress, really feel ultra confident with what you're doing because you're feeling challenged and you're mentally engaged because it's challenging, but you're still totally in control and maintaining your sort of good form to your playing with good rhythmic accuracy, good finger precision, good sound support, all of those good things, while having it be a little weird, a little challenging, and trusting the process that it'll sink in. So have a fantastic week. Happy Labor Day to everybody who's watching this live on Labor Day as well. And I will see you next week on the next live Monday Music Motivation. Happy practicing.